is the iPad Pro 10.5 inch, and it is one of the oldest devices that will receive iPadOS 17 when it's released. So the question is, if you have an old iPad, should you upgrade to iOS 17? Let's dive in. Now with iPadOS 17, the features are relatively minor. The headlining feature, at least in my opinion, is the customizable lock screen. And if you've had an iPhone on iOS 16, you may have encountered this feature already. Now, while I didn't care much about the customizable lock screen on the iPhone, I think on the iPad it actually makes sense because people tend to keep their iPads connected all the time, and the screen makes it a lot easier to view certain photos. So you can shuffle your wallpapers depending on what photos you select, whether it includes people, nature, pets. It's really good. The other features on iPadOS 17 also carry over from the iPhone on iOS 17. So you have the ability to create stickers on iMessage if you want to do those. You have the ability to download map data offline using the Maps app. So Apple Maps is catching up to Google Maps in a key feature. This will only be useful if you're traveling to an area that does not have reliable cell service. So that feature's pretty good if you want to stay within the Apple ecosystem. Now, in terms of performance, I've only had one issue on Beta 2 where after I upgraded to Beta 2, my device was bricked because I could not enter my device's password, and I had to downgrade back to iOS 16 and then re-upgrade to iPadOS 17. But right now this iPad is running the latest version of iPadOS 17 beta, and at the time of this recording, we are getting closer to the final release of iPadOS 17, and I can confidently say that if you have an older iPad, you should not have any issues running iPadOS 17. Now, whether you're going to get useful features out of it, that's going to depend on your workflow. Other features on iPadOS 17 include things like private browsing and locking that behind your iPad's password, Face ID, Touch ID, and this is really helpful for if you are sharing your iPad with a family member and maybe you don't want them to see certain things that you are browsing. So whenever they open Safari, they would have to authenticate with one of those three methods. Next biggest feature is having the Health app on iPad. Now, this is just a bigger version of the Health app on the iPhone. There's not really much to separate the iPhone version from the iPad version, but if you have a smaller iPhone and you don't want to upgrade to one of the bigger iPhones, and if you have an iPad capable of running iOS 17, then you can definitely use that iPad's bigger screen size to see all of your health data. In addition, there's a new mental health check on the Health app, and this will allow you to log your emotions throughout the day, and you can tell your iPad if you feel unpleasant, why you feel unpleasant, or if you feel pleasant, why do you feel that way, and it would actually give you some suggestions on why you feel that way. So maybe you feel pleasant because your older sibling has visited, so it would suggest family. But you can also type in something that is not suggested by Apple. Now, this is a feature I do not plan on using just because I don't feel that logging my mental health on an iPad is going to help with mental health. At the end of the day, you want to talk to someone, you want to seek some therapy, you want to go out, exercise, eat right. So that is the health feature on iPadOS 17. Now, there's a whole bunch of smaller features that I have not dived into, and that is because this iPad does not have the true depth camera. And if you have an iPad with that camera system, then you can set up an eye strain, screen time control, and it will monitor how close you hold your iPad to your face. And that's pretty cool, but this iPad does not run that feature. It's not capable of that feature. But if you have a modern iPhone with a true depth camera, then you're going to be able to get the same experience. Should you upgrade to iOS 17 if you have an old iPad like this one? This one was released 6 years ago. And I would say yes. In addition to security fixes, some features that you may or may not use, it's still worth upgrading because you want to have the latest versions on your devices. And if those versions have security updates, then you are actually protecting your data by upgrading. Now, will you benefit from every feature on iPadOS 17? Probably not. This is a minor upgrade when you really think about the grand scheme of things because, iPadOS 17, iOS 17, they're pretty mature operating systems. So the year-over-year updates are going to get smaller, and you can even see that with the year-to-year updates on the phone as well, and the iPad. I can confidently say that if you are on the fence of upgrading your iPad to iPadOS 17 when it's released, you should be able to upgrade and not experience any issues. Now, if you are the more cautious type, you can wait until iPadOS 17.1 or iPadOS 17.0.1 is released. That way, in case there are any software bugs, by the time you upgrade to that later version of iPadOS 17, you should be able to use your iPad as you normally would. So that about wraps up this review. If you've liked the video, if you found it helpful, please leave a comment. And all engagement is good engagement. Tell me which iPad features that you are excited to use. And until next time, I will see you in the next video. Take care.